There's going to be a learning journey, but that's okay, because once you've got it, I think this is our big thing. We believe it's a skill for life, because we're going forward into that digital age anyway.
You're listening to the She Renovates podcast. You're listening to She Renovates, the podcast for women who want to renovate to create an income and a life they love.
Okay, hello everyone. So a few episodes ago, I shared some of my 100 goals for life, and I'm working my way through them, but I'm starting the process for realizing goal number 33 on my list, and that was to learn to flip websites. I'm really excited about this because it's a bit of a variation on what we do, but it's dealing with property that's often not as, doesn't require as much money. And the renovation, I'm hoping, I'm going to find out shortly, doesn't require so much physical work. But I thought what I would do is bring you on the journey. And so whenever I make a decision to learn a new skill, I like to shortcut the learning curve and get some help from someone who has already walked the walk. And so my guest today is the person that I have chosen as my mentor, and that's Liz Rard. So hi, Liz. Thanks for coming on the call today.
Yeah.
So Liz is half of the eBusiness Institute team, as she's married to Matt. And basically, she's created financial freedom in her life, starting from zero and using a really unconventional method by buying, renovating, and selling websites and digital properties. So the strategies she uses are very similar to those that we use in real estate and can be done from home, starting with very little capital and no debt, which we absolutely love. She's also an angel investor and an educator, and runs the eBusiness Institute with her husband, Matt, training people with skills to buy and build their own online portfolios. Now, very few people around the world even know that this is possible. So I've asked her to share insights into her journey as a successful female entrepreneur and website investor, and tips for those of us who would like to start using our property experience in the online world. So thanks so much for coming on. I have to say, I am really excited about that. And while I was reading out your bio, I thought about it and I thought, I wonder whether you deal with so many, like our industry is still quite, for want of a better word, misogynist. So as women in our industry, we really do have to build our confidence and be quite assertive. Just before we get into the questions that I prepared earlier, what's your experience?
Yeah, that is an interesting question, because I have been involved in a lot of my life in very male-dominated industries. We worked in mergers and acquisitions back in Sydney. We were business brokers for a while, and buying and selling businesses. So before we did websites, we actually bought and sold businesses. And yeah, a lot of the time, even whether it's the suppliers or the contractors or the accountants, even all those people, most of them were men. I think it was a question of kind of, I don't know what you call it. It's just, I just spoke as if they were anyone, and I spoke directly to whoever it was. And if they didn't come back to me with looking me in the eye, or obviously respecting what I was going to say, I internally would just be thinking, all right, I'm not going to deal with you then. You're not worth you're not going to be in my life then. And luckily I have a lovely husband who's very supportive of that, because he was the same. He said, we don't want to work with people who are because we're a team, and obviously, and I'm part of that team, so they need to realize if you work with us, you work with both of us. You don't just talk to him.
Exactly. That's pretty much the approach we've taken as well. Because there've been, and sometimes you don't really have a choice because often we don't have that many trades to choose from. But there've been times when Stephen and I have both got quotes for the same work, and his quote has been significantly lower than mine.
Yeah.
And so, I've figured out some strategies around that so that that doesn't happen, because it's hard to run a business when you're getting the woman tax. But yeah, okay. So the thing that I'm really interested in your product or your process is the low barrier to entry in terms of finance. I don't think it's a low barrier to entry in terms of skill, but we'll talk about that. So in our work, when we are working with students, we like them to have a long-term goal and a short-term goal and a long-term goal. Everyone that watches the Reno shows loves the whole idea of flipping. And I have to say, I love it too, because it's quite adrenaline charged.
Yeah.
However, if you're serious about building wealth, and I know you're on board with this, you've got to think about how you can build more passive income. I don't think any income is ever truly passive, but more passive income to be able to live and get paid when you're not working every day. And what I want to ask you, is this a process that you can achieve with websites?
Yeah, really good question. And interesting, we're the same when we work with people. We always want to know the short-term goal, what do you need now? And then, okay, the long-term goal, where are you heading, and what do you want to create for yourself? And that's what we do. So the wonderful thing about this is, with these digital skills, and this is our specialty, taking absolute beginners through to having the skills to be able to buy and renovate and operate websites, work with online properties in a way that you can add value and then either sell or hold. And I think the most important thing is to understand that there's different strategies for different times in your journey. So often when we start out with people, if they want high cash flow, just like you were saying then with property, we've got cash flow strategies, but we've also got long-term asset strategies. Now the skills cross over. You use the same skills, but it might be a different stage of your journey or of your life. And the cool thing is, like just before I was just did an interview with one of our students, and she's a corporate lawyer. And within 7 months, she's got the skills, and she's actually, what she's doing is selling some websites to local businesses to generate cash flow, because she got to that point where she just couldn't do what she was doing anymore. And she just said, that's it. And she knew she wanted to do cash flow. So she actually used these skills to help some local businesses first, so she can generate up that cash flow. But then she can go on to do other strategies where she builds them for herself or buys them and leverages up. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use these skills. And I think that's what my favorite thing about this is too. And we see this in our students. Everyone goes on their own journey. We teach them that same fundamental set of skills, and then they can go from there, and the world's their oyster. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a very exciting thing about this digital space. Once you've got those skills, it's ultimately choose your own adventure.
I guess one of the sources of my fascination, I've been in this business for now 7 years, and it's been quite an uphill journey, because when I started, I had no idea. I didn't know what end of a website was up. And so it's been a big learning curve. But I, to this day, would not be able to do what your students are doing. So you clearly, I guess, figured out the fast track to getting results.
Yeah, I think it's a very specific, that's a very good point, because I think when you're educating yourself, you can try and learn everything, or you can narrow down and go, okay, this is the exact thing I need to know in order to achieve this goal. That's all I need to know. You don't need to worry about all the other stuff. You actually want to just have that really nice focus, know what you need to know, and do it well. Yeah.
So let's say you've got someone who's not tech savvy, let's say a woman in her 50s wants to replace her income. So how long would it take that woman to, let's say she gives it her all, how long would it take her to become proficient?
There is still how long's a piece of string in that, because of course, and this is our specialty, we work with absolute beginners, but what it does depend on is of course, yes, like you said, how much time you have, but also some people will pick this up and run with it really quickly. And just bam, they're in it. And we've got people who've replaced their incomes, like 6-figure incomes, within 12 months.
Okay.
So that is possible. It's good to know what's possible. But then there's other people who really like to just, they don't want to work at that fast pace, and they don't work like that. So if they're more methodical, then it can take a couple of years. Some people, it's taken 3 years to really get to the point where I'm talking about making money. To become proficient, I think after 12 months, most people, we get everyone to build a website within the first 3 months. So you've put together a website and you've got those skills to have that ability within months. Then the next step is taking that and getting more confident with it. So like the first time you do something, you're like, oh, but then as you do it again, and interestingly too, the journey could be different depending on how you like to operate. Some people love doing it themselves. They love that creative process. And so they pick a strategy where they're building and renovating those assets themselves. I guess it's very similar to property.
It is.
Some people want to do it all themselves. That's very cheap and easy. And as in, you don't have to hire people and all that. But if you want leverage, so if your big long-term goal is, okay, I want this and I want it fast, then this is like Sharon, who I was interviewing. She actually leveraged. She learned the process. She understands how websites works. She gets it. But now she hires people to do the stuff.
Yeah.
So she gets leverage that way. And that's why she's been able to accelerate that journey, because she's reasonably early said, okay, I got it. Now I'm going to get someone else to do it and I'll just manage the process.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What is the difference between the people that take 3 years and the people that take 12 months? And so would you say it is the fact that they're open to letting go and bringing in expertise that's going to help them get to where they want to go?
Always. So we've got Chris, who she built her own sites. Now, she took a while. Like, she was absolute technophobe. She really, when she first came on, she said, it was actually her husband that came on, and she said, nope, don't want anything to do with it. Hate computers. No. But then after a while, she went, oh, okay, this looks pretty cool. And Chris laughs. Matt and Chris always laugh together, because when Matt told her, this is how technophobe she, how non-techie she was. When Matt said, oh, you need it's good to have two computer screens, because you can move stuff. She bought a whole new computer, another computer, not just a screen. So yeah, so that's the level. Like, we are often working with people who really are not technical at all. And so for those people, it will take a bit longer. You might need to get into this digital world. But what's inspiring is, though, Chris went on to make a 6-figure income out of her websites. So I think it's that if you say to yourself, okay, yes, I'm going to learn this. And like you said, let go of that fear and know that it's not going to work straight. Like, it's not going to work the first time you do it. There's going to be a learning journey, but that's okay, because once you've got it, I think this is our big thing. We believe it's a skill for life, because we're going forward into that digital age anyway. We need to know this stuff. And that's something Matt and I are very passionate about. I love setting people up. And so that's our goal, is to give people that skill so that then they can, and in that regard, a lot of time, it actually doesn't matter how long it takes, whether it's a year or 3 years. If you find that you are you don't pick it up instantly, that's okay. Just plan differently and say, all right, maybe I'm not going to be a computer whiz within 2 seconds. That's okay. I'll take my time, and maybe you'll keep working for maybe a year or two longer than you would have really liked to, but in the end you have that skill and no one can take that away. That's what I love about that. You can lose a job, and you can lose, especially I think for us in the 40s and 50s and 60s, for women, it's a very it's stressful. There's so many people we know who, when they lose their job, they can't get another one. So I think there's that as well, that kind of bigger picture thinking, okay, I'm going to get in and I'm going to make this happen.
I just love the concept. I think it's, as I mentioned, it's been on my to-do list for quite a few years, but I had to wait until I got my own business sort of ticking along, because what's that Chinese proverb? If you chase many rabbits, you catch none. Is that how it
Yeah.
goes? Yeah. So getting to a point where you've got focus. And that's certainly what I find. One of the things that I think makes a difference in getting results, actually being focused on what you're trying to achieve. So
Yeah.
if you're someone who's looking down the path of retirement and not really seeing that you're prepared for a good life, then
Mm.
you're giving this some focus will really make a massive difference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think the other element too, which we see a lot, is that we've got a lot of retirees who are on our courses who they don't want to retire yet. They want to do something fun. They want to keep that, brain going and doing some stuff and keeping some income coming in. And this is a great way to do it because it's not physical, it's not hard physical labor, and you can leverage it if you want to. You can get other people to do that technical stuff. And then, so I think that's a really cool thing too.
Absolutely.
Something you can do now ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If you want to.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely putting my hand up. So one of the problems that I find with our students, and forgive me for drawing these analogies, but that's really, I think we are really aligned in that way. And one of the problems that I notice happens, and I've established a solution for it, and I'm wondering how you go about this, is the amount of time it takes them to find a property that has potential, that the right property. And I would imagine that takes judgment that comes with experience. And often when you've just got out of the theory, it takes a while to develop that sort of experience. Do you find that comes into play with your process?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because yes, you need a little bit of mastery to really buy well. Now, what we do and what I think is a really good point, a good thing about this marketplace is that we can get mastery with very small deals.
Yeah.
So we can buy a site for under $500 and we can build a few sites first and really understand how it works, get some success with those. And then you really have a far better understanding. Now you can do that almost for free, like with a bit of hosting, $10, $15 a month in hosting. You may pay for potentially a little bit of content. So maybe a few $100s and you can be up and running and going through the whole process many times before you go and buy a website worth 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever it is. And so I think for our strategy, that's the bonus in doing online and this kind of strategy. Our properties are ranging from a couple of $100s to multi-million dollars. And there's the potential to take one to any level. So just a quick example, which is I just thought of, which I love, is one of the brokers we know. He was telling us about one of his sites that he just recently sold. And it was from a couple of guys who bought a little website, well, not little, let's say it's a $20,000 website, which is, but in real estate terms, that's tiny. So website for 20,000, they had a big goal in mind. And so they hit that website with a lot of content. That was their plan. They added lots and lots of content. 4 years later, they sold that website for $15 million.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome? So the leverage, it's again, choose your own adventure. What's your goal? And you can pick the deals that suit you. So in terms of time frame, what you were saying, there's lots of little deals available. So you can buy those instantly and start practicing. So that's good. The next level up, so say $1,000 to $5,000 deals, we've got some students who've really bought really well in that kind of range. Lisa, she just bought one about a year ago, $2,000. She renovated. That one's now making, it just hit $7,000 in a month.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? There's some really nice deals in there, but obviously they're a little, you've got to be looking for those. I'd say there's lots of deals coming up all the time. Flipper has hundreds of sites
that is
listing for sale every day. So, and then there's all the brokers. There's more and more brokers popping up. So we're talking a growth market here. So we've got a lot more opportunities coming into the market every day.
Yeah. So one of the ways that I got around the problem is I partnered with, I identified first brokers or buyer's agents who are reputable and understand the process and the numbers to actually source the properties for students who did not feel confident about it. Is there some,
Right.
yeah, and that's actually been a game changer. So I
Mm.
find sort of generally, not always, but generally, the students that get the best results are the ones that actually take that on, because it's not just the skill in finding the property, it's the time frame and keeping the deal flow happening. So if you've got someone that you can trust to source that property for you, you can have your projects lined up ready to go. So do you
Clever.
have anything like that available?
That's very smart. We don't at the moment, but that is a very smart idea.
Yeah.
Although in websites, I think part of the joy, we found a lot of our students, part of the joy is actually the search.
Yeah.
And I got to say, knowing due diligence, that's one of the skills. So you know how we talked at the beginning about focus and what are those main skills that you need. Due diligence is one of those skills that is worth so much money. It's worth millions, and not many people in the world can do due diligence on websites. They don't know how, don't know what to look for. And so that's something we focus on a lot, is making sure that our students do understand due diligence, because even if a buyer's agent did say to them, here's a good buy, in website land, it's also got to be a good buy for them. So you got to match your skills to the actual deal. And I assume you'd need to do the same.
Yeah.
But in websites, I think it's a really valuable thing for people to learn that skill of due diligence. And it's interesting. Like initially, like you said, yeah, it's hard because it feels clunky and you've got all these things you've got to check. And at least we can do it at home in our Jimmy Jams. So
Yeah.
we can do it worldwide and at whatever time in the day we want. And we don't have to do a whole lot of accountancy and lawyer and all that sort of stuff. It's a lot because they're, you know, it's a different structure. I think that frees us up. And I really think, knowing that yourself, once you get used to it, once you get past that initial learning phase, you'll actually start to get to the point where your gut feel. You'll see a deal and you go, okay, I think that looks good. And then you'll do some deeper research, but you'll get that gut feeling. Gosh, that's a good feeling.
Yeah,
because then
absolutely.
you can find them far quicker and easier then too.
And I think that you're right. It's the low buy-in makes that a much safer process. Like you're putting $500 on the line, you're not putting 500,000. And so I think sometimes for some people, the weight of that decision, because it's so much money, weighs really heavily. And so that's great. That's another plus. So for us, with a property, we have a bit of a sweet spot in terms of how old the property should be. Like, this is not a hard and fast rule, but it's something that I think really helps to get fast profits and be able to roll them over pretty quickly. And that's, you know, a house or an apartment that's about 20 years old, because it's been built using relatively modern building practices, yet it's 20 years, it's tired, it's ready for a refresh, so they respond well, and so there's good profit in it. Not in all properties that are 20 years old, or just better, you know.
Clarify that.
That's one of the criteria that I think matters. I know age matters with websites, but what's the go in terms of
and not just age, probably. I mean, what too, like just that search criteria. What are you looking for in a good deal? So in terms of age, obviously for website land, it's the older the better, because it becomes rarer. It becomes the more history it's got, the more you can trust the future. Especially if it's in, now we have some specific criteria that we follow when we pick our websites. We're very strategic about the websites we pick, just like you're strategic about your properties. So there are certain elements that we need to see before in a deal, before we would even investigate it any further. Even simple things like it's on a simple platform. It's easy to manage. You understand it. Like, you don't have to know the topic, but you understand what it's about and how it makes money, things like that. Now, age is one of those things that, the longer it's been around, the more we can trust that it's going to keep being around and it's going to keep making its profits that it's showing. But in website world, even a year old is a good, we want at least a year. And when we're starting to buy websites of 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, we want at least a year, probably more like 3 to 4 years is great, of history. That gives it more value, more security. So we buy security. We want, our whole due diligence process is about, okay, figuring out, we need to know which are the websites that are going to continue doing what they're doing, but also, like you find, having some things that we can do to quickly increase those profits or the traffic that's coming to them, like the visitors.
And I'm not asking you to give away the farm, but I'm really curious to know, how much paid traffic do you use?
Very little to none.
Really?
No, yeah, it's all SEO.
Wow, that's
Very
amazing.
little social as well. Like we do have websites that have social media presences and all that sort of stuff. But I find that the reason why is because it's so not leveraged in that. And it's also very, if I stop paying for advertising, it's gone. What we're finding, what we're buying is assets. So our whole strategy is about buying online assets. And I know maybe most people probably, maybe you don't know the word search engine optimization or anything like that. But basically what we're finding, what we buy is properties that are ranking in search engines. And so there's a history and a momentum to them. So it's actually hard to turn them off. So we want those ones that I'm trying to think of a property equivalent, but it is like buying that property. So
well,
that we
it's
have
like buying blue chip suburb, really, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Rather than the quick fly-by-night pop-up sort of stuff. Yeah.
So with us, if someone wants to produce around 100,000 in a project, they need to be spending about 800,000 or 900,000 on a property. So if you had a student that wanted to produce 100,000 income, let's say 10 grand a month, and they were going to buy a website to get up to speed quickly, so that they could, let's say someone who's lost their job, got some retrenchment pay, wants to replace their income really quickly. They're earning 80 to 100,000, so they're going to need to something that's earning at least 10,000 a month. What sort of money would they need to invest to buy that?
Well, when we value websites, and first of all, I would not recommend they buy one website. I would, we're portfolio based because we have the luxury of doing that because we can buy many assets rather than just one big one, and that's safer in this marketplace. And we do that with everything. Same with our share portfolio, same with properties. Where over the years when we bought and sold properties, we tend to have more than one, and we're so we like diversification. That's been our strategy, and that's what's worked for us. We wouldn't buy just one. I would recommend that buy a range of them, probably a range of price points and sizes. You might buy a few in the $2,000 to $5,000 range. You might buy one at $10,000 to $50,000 range. Websites are valued on monthly profit. So let's say a website is making $10,000 a year, or let's say $12,000 a year. It would sell, I should say $10,000 a year. It would sell for somewhere between $10,000 to $30,000.
Okay.
So
they're going to need to spend about 100 grand roughly.
If you're wanting to make 100,000 a month, well, see, this is the thing. What our strategy is, we buy ones to renovate.
Okay.
So just to give you an idea, Mark, who we've got some good student interviews. If people want to see a few more student interviews, we'll talk about that. He bought a website for $6,000, another one for about 20,000, 18 to 20. Another one around, I think, the 15,000. He spent a total of $50,000 on websites, and he's renovated them. And he now makes somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 a month in income, which values his portfolio at about $500,000. But he bought it for $50,000. So our strategy is about buying smart and then renovating and getting that income up. And our strategy is also about we want to pay the asset back to ourselves completely as quickly as possible. So if we buy an asset for $10,000 and it's making $1,000 a month, then we pay it back in 10 months. But ideally what we want to do is renovate that and double the income. That's always our goal, to double the income. And so that pays back in 6 months, 5 months. And that means once we've got that money back in our pocket, then the website it's kind of a free and clear asset. That's our goal. So then it doesn't matter what happens. That's income coming in from that asset. And then we can take that money and go buy another one. And that's how we do it without debt. Unless you want to, if you've got 100 grand and you want to put it in the market, Yep, that's
Yeah.
fine. But if you want to do it without debt, you can actually just, if
Yeah.
you're a little bit more patient, you can roll it along, renovate, pay it back, take that money, go again.
I could keep asking you questions all day because I am absolutely fascinated, but I'm going to narrow it down to a couple. So the first thing is, oh no, I've got a few more than a couple, but firstly, does it matter? Is it better that you buy websites that you on topics that you're passionate about, or build them?
Good question. We don't. We buy websites in any topic. It's just the money models or money making model I'm interested in, and that it's simple and it can be renovated, and I don't care what topic it's in. There are a few topics that we do avoid, especially where there might be copyright issues, things like celebrity sites, things that, you wouldn't buy a site about Kim Kardashian or something like that because it's very trend. We stick to the basics: health, wealth, happiness.
Okay.
Those are the three topics that we stick to. And so, yeah, but you don't need to understand it. We get all our content is written by outsourced writers. So we might find a writer who knows about that topic, or they can pretty easily research it and put together content for us.
Yeah.
So,
which brings me to the next point. So you may or may not know, I quite like to get leveraged. And so I think I mentioned to you that one of my team, Judy, is going to be working with me on this because I don't like getting down in the ditch if I can help it.
yep.
I'm just wondering, so what sort of skills do you need on your team if you're planning to, let's say we're planning to replace our 100K income, what skills do we need? So obviously we need some sort of web developer or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you need a technical person, someone who can troubleshoot. So you don't want to be doing the troubleshooting things and that, no. And so that's the first thing we get all our students to hire is the technical person. And then a writer or several writers. So they're the people who are doing the content for those websites. So all the websites we buy rely on content, good quality content, being ranked in Google. And so it's free advertising then once you have content that's ranking and drawing in traffic, drawing in people.
Yeah.
And our whole focus is answer questions, solve problems. Thought process is how can we help people in this topic and make life easier for them. Okay. So yes, techie and content person.
Okay. What about images and that sort of thing? Do you need to source a service for providing royalty-free images, or what's the go?
Yeah, we do. So we use like Adobe Stock or something like that so that we've got images for our sites. In some of our websites, so if we've got product review websites, so we do no e-commerce. We don't own any products or stock, but we review products. And a couple of our websites, what we've got is it's in very passionate niches. And so we get people who are passionate about those things, and we get samples sent to them. They review them, photograph them, do all that, and then send it in. And they love to do that. They will even do that. Some of those will do it for free because they just love it so much. So there's all sorts of ways that you can generate content and get original images and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, generally photo stock type places are great for images. And graphic design, it's so easy to get now. You can have your own outsourcers do it on places like Canva. There's Fiverr, Upwork, all those places.
I have to say yes to all of those because I use them like all the time. So yeah. So that's great. So something that we have to do when you're buying and holding property, you've really got to keep your finger on the pulse, because like I often think that all those people that bought mining town properties, if they had been watching the market, would not have ended up in the dire straits that they were, because the signs were there long before the disaster happened. And I think that an online site, you probably do need to stay up to date with what's happening. And also you don't have to know much about SEO to know Google rules the roost. How do, everyday people that are doing this stay abreast? And is the Google algorithm really something that we need to be concerned about, or is that all hype?
Yeah, there is a lot of hype around that. Mostly the people who jump up and down and get all upset when Google releases a new update or something, it's because they've been trying to game the system. and they got caught. What we teach is, again, we go back to the fundamentals. If we provide a good user experience, if we provide great quality content, if we think about our readers and think, okay, what do they need to know and how can we deliver it to them in a great way? That, in essence, that's what SEO is about. It's about, because remember, Google's a brand. And if when you go onto Google, you expect good quality results. Create websites or renovate websites so that they're good quality. I'm sure it's a very similar thing in property. Don't do a rubbish job on your renovation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's really
high quality, but it's got to be good. Like, it's got to be professional. And so that's, I think, as long as you have that attitude, it's off. We laugh because often when the Google updates happen, our sites jump up in rankings and we go, yay, some more people who are trying to game the system have gone.
Wow, that's pretty encouraging. I definitely need to know more. And we had a conversation before about what we're going to do about that. And so could I ask you to share with our audience, if someone would like to know more, where can they find that out?
Yeah, what we do some free training. And I think that's where we go into a lot more detail about our processes and how this all works and how you could get started and everything you need to know to take that kind of first step and really understand, okay, what's this all about? Is this something I could actually do? Would it suit me? And so we've got a special webinar, and what we're going to do is it's related to, for you as property investors, how does this work in your lifestyle? How does this work in terms of what you're doing with property? Can you use it to actually supplement your property income or maybe cash flow some property income? And that's often the questions we have from property investors. So we'd like to answer all those questions for you and see whether this is going to be something that could actually solve some problems for you. So we'll do a webinar. I think we're going to have a link below.
Yep, we are.
Yeah. So you can find out, you can register for that and just join us. And that too, we'll do an open Q&A so that you can actually ask us any questions relating to what does this mean for you and how you can apply it for yourself.
Awesome. So that's on the 19th of May. And it's going to be at 7 p.m. So we will post the link in the show notes. I hope you can't hear that noise. Stephen's grinding coffee.
All right. No, I can't.
This room's usually pretty good sound-wise, except when they decide to make coffee. But anyhow, that's part of the fun of running a business from home.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And then also, in the meantime too, I think get inspired. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of stories there from people who are actually out there doing it. And I think that kind of puts it in context and you really hear, okay, how does this work in the real world and what are people doing with it? So that's very inspirational as well.
Well, I think the thing that inspired me was one of our Wonder Women. Yeah. Joined and you've got a few of our graduates in your program, and I was listening to the stories that they were relaying to me, and that's what piqued my interest. And not recently, a while ago. So I've been holding off, using some discipline, but yeah, now's the time. So for anyone that's listening that wants to join me on the journey, please, register and come along to the webinar. And will you have Matt there, Liz, or will it just be you?
Yeah, no, we'll both be there.
Yeah.
And we'll take you through the whole process.
Whoa, that's really good. Yeah, so that should be fun. So thank you for being on the call. For anyone that hasn't left us a review, if you have enjoyed this episode, I'd really love to hear about it. If you could go over to iTunes and leave us a review and tell me what you think, I would be really grateful because, as you know, I read them all and they just really help to inform the topics that we cover. And I think that this has been a really nice diversion from what we usually do, in line, but with a few more spicy bits. So thanks so much, Liz. And we'll see you on the 19th.
Yes, I am so excited, Bernadette. This is going to be a really cool journey. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you.
This is the She Renovates podcast. To discover how to harness the power of renovating, check out theschoolofrenovating.com.